Hi everybody, it's Mr. Trevor and time once again for another Explore Mesa County video. We are very excited because the museums of Western Colorado have allowed us to go out to all three museum locations. We're going to go to Dinosaur Journey and the Museum of the West downtown, but today we're starting with Cross Orchards, a really amazing historical place here in Grand Junction. And we are going to meet the curator of Cross Orchards, Matt Darling. He's going to tell us all about this awesome place. Let's go find Matt. Well, we are here with the curator of Cross Orchards, Matt Darling. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Trevor. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for letting us come out to Cross Orchards. This is awesome. This place is really far away from the library, and it's so neat to get out here. So you're the curator of Cross Orchards. Can you tell us a little bit about what being a curator of an orchard is like?
Happily. A curator, manages a collection of artifacts or items or whatnot. And here at Cross Orchards, because it's half an agriculture museum and half a transportation museum, it's a mixture of taking care of apple trees. We have a small vineyard, but then also you're working on our vintage Uinta railway equipment, old historic tractors, trucks, and other equipment, and of course just taking care of and maintaining the historic buildings, 3 of which are on the National Historic Registry.
And how long has Cross Orchards been here?
Cross Orchards started as a museum in 1981. It officially opened up to the public in 1983. But the historic buildings at Cross Orchards date back to turn of the last century when the Cross Orchards Fruit and Land Company were created by Walter and Elizabeth Cross.
Wow, so it's called Cross Orchards because of the people who started the orchard originally. Their last name was Cross?
Yes, their last name was Cross, and it was, at the time when it was created, the largest orchard in the Grand Valley at 243 acres. So yeah, they just named it after themselves when they founded it.
I like to imagine what it must have looked like out here back then. Right now, the orchard is kind of surrounded by a residential area, so lots of houses where people live. But do you have an idea of what this area, this neighborhood looked like when Cross Orchards first began?
The area was completely surrounded by trees. If you stood where we are now, you'd see trees in every single direction, nothing but apple trees. Because they had over 20,000 apple trees when Cross Orchards was, at full production in the 19-teens and 20s.
That's really neat. So what is this building we're standing in front of right now?
We're standing in front of the Swanson Collection Building. It's one of our largest collections. The Swansons donated a humongous amount of agricultural artifacts in 1990, and they even generously helped pay for the construction of this building. And it's been an artifact storage display building, for 30 years now.
Well, can we go inside this building and see what's in it?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. I'll follow you if that's okay.
Yep. Okay, Trevor, this is the inside of the Swanson building here. These are the display cases that we actually just revamped recently. And it's a myriad of many artifacts. It's just, almost anything that you would find on an old period farm and homestead.
And so this building, the public can come in and see when
Yes.
you're open to the public?
Yes, the Swanson exhibit building is open whenever the museum is open. Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, 9 to 3. Okay, so this is our 1931 fire truck. It's currently getting a new radiator. The plan is to be giving rides to people when they visit Cross Orchards, to generate a little extra revenue for the museum.
It's so neat to see such an old fire truck because the very first Explore Mesa County video that we shot was at the brand new fire station that Grand Junction Fire Department has. And we got to see a fire truck there that's, very state-of-the-art, current, the newest kind possible. And you can watch that video on Mesa County Library's YouTube channel. And now you get to see this one that goes back so many decades and see how different fire trucks are now from how they used to be.
This is the packing shed floor of the barn. And this is where all the, mostly ladies would pack all the fruit that had been harvested in the orchard, put into crates, and then be loaded onto the wagons, which would be parked right here, and later trucks, to be then sent, south to the railhead. Now we're heading up to the attic.
All right. Oh, wow. So one thing that we really wanted to do with these Explore Mesa County videos was not just to go to neat places, although that's part of it, but when we get to the neat places, go to the places in those neat places that most people can't go. So right now, we are in a barn at Cross Orchards, in the attic. Matt brought us up into the attic, which if you come here on normal days, you won't be able to check this out. So tell us about this barn and this attic, Matt.
Yeah, we're in our 1910 barn. Well, we call it the barn. It's actually a combination packing shed barn. The main purpose of the building was once all the apples were harvested in the orchard, they would be brought out to the packing shed floor, which is directly below us, where the men would harvest the apples, and then the ladies, with some of the kids helping, would crate all the apples, and then they would be put onto carts and then later trucks to be hauled down to the railhead at Fruitvale, which is about a mile south of us. The attic that we're here in was partly used as a storage area, but also where the kids and younger adults would build the crates that the apples would be stored in.
So you said that kids would help build the boxes, like put together the wood and nail the wood together that the apples would go in?
Yes, back in 1900 when the barn was built, the labor laws were very different, and the older kids, 10 years and up, would they would help build the boxes.
Wow, that's really interesting. I never knew that.
And then once they were crated, they would also be sorted during the crating process. So the really nice apples would get put into certain crates to be sent off to certain locations, like Denver, Salt Lake, Santa Fe. Then there would be like the grade B apples. They would go to more local areas. Grade C apples would be given to the horses.
Wait a minute, so you mean us Grand Junction folks got the apples that weren't so great?
Well, I wouldn't put it quite that way, but you could get a premium price for the really nice apples, and the city folk tend to pay a little bit more. Not every apple's the same taste or quality, and it's just part of the nature of nature.
Have you kids noticed that? Depending on what kind of apple you get from the grocery store, or if you go to an orchard, maybe you like it a little more than others. I know that I like to find apples that are as sweet as possible. I want them to be really, really sweet and crunchy. And sometimes I'm able to find the right ones in the store and sometimes not.
And actually that brings up a good point. In the fall, we here at Cross Orchards, the museum, we make fresh apple cider. And it's a little different than apple juice, because a modern apple juice that you get at the grocery store is called pasteurized. It's a safety process so that it won't turn bad and then taste icky. We sell it to you direct from the process of us making it. You get to watch us make it during Fall Day on the Farm. But there is the addition that you have to drink it quickly, because apple cider, when it's not pasteurized, can start to change and do funny things, and then it doesn't taste good anymore.
Right, so drink fresh cider quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
It tastes the best that way.
Oh, yeah.
And it's safe that way.
It sounds great. I've got to get some.
Yeah, Fall Day on the Farm in October.
All right.
This here is caboose number 3. It's my personal favorite as a railroad historian, but also just cabooses are cool. Yeah. Cabooses were used on the rear of the train, and the idea was the conductor and the head brakeman would ride the rear of the train and keep an eye on it. This was before radio, so if there was any problems, how did the two communicate? Well, I'll be showing you in just a minute.
All right.
A caboose was, is an observation platform. This object here on top of the roof is called a cupola, where the train crews would climb up and sit in these seats and watch the train and keep an eye on it. And if they saw a problem, there was, this emergency valve up here, which is the air brakes. And if they saw a problem, they'd, hit the valve, which would dump the air, activating the brakes on the train and stopping it. Because they couldn't talk to the engineer who was at the front, who was driving the train. Trains are very large and very heavy. A small narrow gauge locomotive weighs 60,000 pounds when an average SUV weighs 5,000 pounds. That tremendous weight also means it's hard for them to stop. So the railroads, even 100 years ago, they had extra safety features to make it to stop the train, because it's just hard to get that much weight to stop rolling. So just don't ever get in the way of a train, especially Amtrak, because they go very fast.
Yeah, and I bet if there are any kids watching, I bet a lot of them have train toys. And if they got out their little caboose toy, they would notice that there's a little part on it that's higher than the rest. And you're saying that's the cupola, right?
Yes.
And so that's where the person would sit. And because it's up higher than the rest of the train, he'd be able to look out across all the train cars and make sure that everything's okay. I never knew that that's why they were shaped that way.
Yeah, it was all about being able to see the rest of the train. And you can still see cupolas, or cabooses with cupolas, on some tourist railroads, like the Durango and Silverton down in Durango, Colorado, or my favorite, the Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad in Chama, New Mexico. They run historic trains made up to look exactly like the way they did back in, say, the 1940s. And on the rear of the train, there will be a caboose with its cupola, and there'll be guys up in the cupola keeping an eye on the train, just like they did 100 years ago.
Wow. Be a fun place to ride, wouldn't it, kids? Up in the cupola, being able to see out over everything.
And there are some museums that actually do offer rides in the cupola. Our caboose doesn't roll, but our ride-on train does have a caboose with the cupola.
Wow.
And the seats in it are made for little kids, especially for little kids.
All right.
No adults allowed. We don't fit.
That's neat. Matt, thank you so much for showing us around Cross Orchards. This place is so neat. It was great to learn so much.
My pleasure. I love showing Cross Orchards off to people, to anybody really.
Well, thank you very much. We are so excited because Explore Mesa County gets to go to all 3 museum locations. So we get to go see Dinosaur Journey and the Museum of the West next. But we're so happy we got to start it out here at Cross Orchards. Thanks a lot, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We hope to see you next time at Explore Mesa County.